Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Tucker from Delta Drive Design, bringing you another episode where we're going to start fitting the motor into this chassis. Got this chassis torn down. It's not cleaned up or anything, but I've got the old engine mounts from the Chevy 350 taken out, roughly ground. I'll clean all that up when I actually strip the chassis. For now, I've got at least the sharp parts cut off. I'm leaving the engine mounts from the old Surrealist engine in. Maybe I get lucky and maybe they fit the new motor. Doubt it, but maybe. Then we're going to leave the cross member for now, see if it fits. Imagine I'll have to move it back, but we'll see. Alright, then we got the motor here. It's roughly placed. I'll go ahead and get it oriented under the two-post lift. Try to figure out the best way to lift it. And we'll go from there. Alright, stay tuned. Alright, we got the reverse template mold of the inside of the doghouse on the cab sitting on the engine, and it's looking pretty darn good. So we'll go ahead and do a quick tour real quick. So I mean it's roughly in place. I mean within, I'd say, half an inch or so. Good enough for an assessment at least. So over here, this is probably going to be the tightest side. You can see I had to kind of cut away some pieces on the side and kind of cut away this section because it just wouldn't clear the shock mount, which, come to find out, the shock mount on the driver's side is shimmed out about half an inch to an inch. This side is not. Not sure why. I'll have to dig in on that. But so here we got, you know, this corner, this flange right here is essentially the bottom of the top of the doghouse, the part that pivots up and down. You see, we're clear. I mean, the tightest spot is going to be this oil filter location. And I mean, we've got a finger width, which we can probably make that work. Worst case, I don't know if this engine has one, but I imagine they do, or I can fabricate something like a remote oil mount, oil filter mount. But again, like, I think I'm close enough where we can make it fit. The caveat will just be any kind of, I'm going to do some sound deadening on the inside of this cab, so that may compromise that, so I'll have to work around that. But then we got back here, you know, we're sitting, we got 5 inches back there and a good like foot up front. Like I like that placement. We're not super tight back here, and we got plenty of space up front. Not that there's going to be really anything in the front. I mean, I could put a radiator there if I wanted to, but I think ultimately I want my radiator, a remote radiator in the back, so that all that heat gets dissipated out of the back of the chassis. And then this also sends some of the weight towards the back, because, you know, weight on the front of these things is a big deal. They get kind of front heavy. That's why a lot of the FCs have a big weight in the back of the chassis to counteract all this weight sitting on the very front. I mean, everything, all the weight, like all 2,000 pounds of the front is sitting right over this front axle. So by getting it shifted as far back as I can, that'll help with that dynamic. And also, again, kind of the doghouse is bigger towards the back. So by scooting it back, I get a little more space back here, because it tapers towards the front. So we got this side. It looks pretty good. Yeah, I always knew the turbo was going to poke through or be really close to the side of the inner fender well. This is what is right here, is the inner fender well. And I mean, I'm really darn close. I mean, I might only be sticking an inch into that fender well, and right now actually my cab is missing this piece because I think the previous owner did something. So it may not be an issue at all, or I can move this whole piece on the sheet metal outward an inch or something, make something work, or I don't know, make a new, actually that's probably a better thing to do, is make a new, it's got the piece that goes here is like a louvered ventilation panel, and I could probably, it's missing anyway, so I could fabricate a new one that's like shimmed out an inch or two. That's probably what I'll do. That'll look better. So yeah, so this side's looking pretty good, you know, and now, and by spacing it, you know, having this space back here, I now have room to put the computer. I can mount it somewhere in this back chassis. I could probably get the fuse box maybe down here too, depending on accessibility. Yeah, get a lot of electronics back here. So I think that'll be really good. Let's see, it's come around to this. It's the front. Yeah, front looks pretty good. You know, clearance over the top. I mean, I got a good 2-3 inches of clearance as it sits, which I really like that. I think that'll be really good. And come around to this side. And, you know, the two constraints on this side was always going to be the AC pump, which, you know, I've got a good, you know, inch in here. So that's perfect. The hoses, those do look like they're constraining a little bit. But I mean, it's actually not touching. I can fit my finger through there. Maybe, I mean, just barely. So I got like a 1/4 inch of clearance right there. So it's going to be tight. I mean, I know it's going to be tight. So I may have to do some adjustment or some massaging of the sheet metal, or maybe I can get like a shorter stud bolt. That's really what's the issue here, is the stud bolt on this. And then, let's see, we got, definitely got the dipstick tube. It is pushing out here a little bit, which may be influencing this. But I mean, it's not too bad. I mean, we're probably, if I can take this and bend it and move it back here, that solves that problem. Then I'll just have to deal with this problem. So that's fitting pretty well. The other big one on this one, and I've always knew it was going to be an issue, is the intake. This is the intake coming out of the intercooler, which will ultimately be mounted down here, probably right in front of the this steering. I don't know if it's a pinion, whatever you want to call that. This L-shaped bracket down here that runs the steering from the steering box back to the steering linkages. But yeah, I'll probably run the intercooler in front of that. So what I'm theorizing, I can either do two things. I can do a blade delete, which eliminates this whole silver part and gets my intake over here. That's a good option. But it's still, I mean, the constraint's going to be, how do I get the intercooler tube through here? And probably what I'll do is, you know, get, I think this is like 2.5 or 3 inch intercooler tube. I'll flatten it, because ultimately it doesn't matter. As long as it's not like a sharp bend or a really tight constraint, as long as the cross-sectional area is the same, the air's not going to know the difference. So I'll probably end up, you know, bending it and then flattening it, kind of massaging it to fit maybe up into here or over, somehow getting it into like a more open cavity. and then dropping it down to the intercooler. So I think I can make that work. And then we come back here. I mean, nothing really is an issue on this side. So the AC pump's a little tight, but I think that'll be perfect. Yeah, nothing. It's pretty good. Like, it's fitting pretty good. Now the tunnel back here, I know when I made this, there actually is a cutout in the tunnel, and I just didn't make that, so that is perfect. You know, it's pushing up about 1 inch, which I believe that tunnel was at least 1 inch or 2, so I'm pretty confident that's perfect. And if it's not, what I can always do is drop the transmission a little further, because it is actually, let me move these blocks so you can see, it is a little high. I mean, we're a good, say, 6 inches higher than the rear pinion. And also, I think, yeah, it's not centered. I do need to adjust that. This whole thing needs to come over. Let's grab a tape measure. I think about 3 or 4 inches. Tape. Yes, we're, let's measure the inside of the frame. We're 22 3/4 from that direction. And like 20 3/4. So yeah, so we're a good inch. So we need to go that way 1 inch, which will help my pinion angle a little bit, because that axle is offset about 2 inches to the passenger side. So do what I can to try to make that correct, or make that a little less severe. And then, yeah, I think otherwise we're in pretty good shape, I think. Nothing crazy tight, which was kind of a big thing with choosing this engine. I didn't want to do a lot of mangling of the sheet metal to make it fit, and I think we're there. So now the next big step is getting some engine mounts fabricated, and that we can see this side might be better. That's going to be kind of a pain. Yeah, you can't really see. I'll get this cardboard thing off. We'll take a closer look at it, but it's the factory engine mounts. You know, they're down here, like in the middle of the frame rail, and there's 3 mounts on each. There's 3 bolts on each mount, and each bolt is at a different plane. So it's going to be a rather complicated engine mount. The alternative is I can go and get some engine mounts designed for retrofits that are much simpler. At the same time, like, I know this engine mount works well for this engine. It's designed for this engine, so I'd like to keep it if I can. If it just means I have to get a little complicated with the actual my side of the mount, I think I'm okay with that. But, and then I guess we didn't talk about engine mount, or the transmission mount. So what I did before I dropped the transmission in here is dropped the engine in here, is I went ahead and moved the mount. It was bolted, let's see, where was it? Here. I believe this, I don't really know what happened. Like, I don't know if these were like the factory bolt locations for like an FC-170, and then they made new ones for the M-677 to support, you know, the slightly different engine and drivetrain that came in those trucks. So that's what I'm speculating, because these look very factory mounts, and then I mean, you can see original paint right there. So that's what I'm thinking, is this was originally here, and then this was the FC-170 location. Well, it turns out, like, dropping it 3 inches to these lower mounts is pretty much perfect for this engine. And then it's already got, you know, it's still got a engine mount on the bottom, and I'll just pop some new holes right here and drop it in. I think that'll be about perfect. I don't think I'm going to rely on just these 2 bolts. I'll probably do something else, maybe weld on an extension, or do something here so it's not just the 2 bolts holding the transmission, especially considering the torque that this engine's going to put out compared to the old one. So I'll beef this up, but I do think this is a pretty good location for this. And I did that on the same side over there. But yeah, well, good deal. So let's go ahead and get this cardboard thing off. Like, I don't know if I need to keep it. Well, I'll keep it for a little longer, but I'll go ahead and start getting the engine mounts hooked up or fabricated and try to get this thing secure. All right, good deal. Thanks for watching. Until next time.